Hello everybody, and here we are live once again for a VHF UHF show, and opening the chat here, going here. We'll open up this a little bit more. So welcome everyone. Don't know how many people we're going to have today. I'll open my beer, find my own beer, of course. This is the monthly VHF UHF show. And of course, we are here to talk about everything that is radio related above 30 megahertz. And hopefully you'll enjoy today's show. We are going to answer a few questions. We're going to track some satellites. I've got the satellite software just there, and have a lot of fun. I've also been doing the config of my new tablet that I've got here, an Android tablet that is quite cool. So what's nice is that actually it's really nice to see. But this is an new Android tablet that I've got, and basically having a lot of fun with it. And of course, we are one of the things I've been configuring because I knew that we were doing the show today was the Heavens Above software, so that I can track my satellites and have everything on the tablet. So it's kind of pretty cool, and it's a very nice 10-inch tablet that I've received this morning. So we'll be using that partly for all the information we need to see what satellites are coming over in the next hours, and hope you enjoy today's show. So, hey everybody, welcome aboard. My name is Gilles, located in Montreal, Quebec, Canada. Today it's dedicated to everything above 30 megahertz, so don't expect me to talk about shortwave or anything in the shortwave spectrum. We'll have that in the regular shortwave shows all the time. So I hope you enjoy today's show. Cheers everybody. Nice to have you on board, all of you. I don't know how many people we're going to have. We typically have less people on this side. I do advertise it less because I don't want to, there are groups where I advertise my shortwave show that I actually don't use here because they're shortwave related, and I don't want to kind of put something that's not related to the subjects there, which is not shortwave in this case. So we typically have we have less people watching. So hey everybody, welcome aboard. Richard Cook in the UK, nice to have you here. Radioactive, nice to have you on board. iMapper, hello there from Moscow, Russia. MDK2 is at work, will be home in a little over an hour. Andy Coley, nice to have you here. Mark Clark from Central Pennsylvania, nice to have you here. Bobby Burgess, good afternoon from Louisiana. McGlone from Florida, home of the Red Tide and Fishkill. Yeah, I saw that. I saw a news article about that. The weird color of the ocean, and it's a very weird thing. We have Nick Amendot from Romania. I was about to say from Radio Romania, but it's from Romania and not Radio Romania. William Helms in Florida, nice to have you here. Jerry DX, nice to have you on board. And Rock the Tech Guy, good afternoon. So, what is very cool with this is that today we're not going to have it computer controlled, but in the near future, yes, I now have my USB to serial adapter that is on the plugged on the R8500. So this is what I usually do when I use the tracking satellites, because there's Doppler shift. It's fun to have the radio computer controlled when the Doppler shift for different satellites. Eric Cottrell, nice to have you here. So yeah, you're not moderator because I probably never gave you moderator status, Nick Hammond on this one. Here we go, moderator. Welcome to the moderators. I would guess there's a few people that were moderator on the other side that are not here. Hey, Eric Cottrell, here we go. Let's put Eric moderator also. Why not? Here we go. So like that, people can do a little cleanup when something's happening. Vancouver Island DXer, nice to have you on board. And it's your first time checking in here. Missed yesterday's shortwave show, so just finished playing it. Cool, Brian. VE7AUL, VE7011 SWL also. Steve in Australia, nice to have you on board. Pretty cool. And nice to have everybody here. Matambali, nice to have you here from not very far from WWV in Colorado. And pretty cool. Richard Cook says weak tropo propagation tonight in the FM band. Let me check something. 103.5. Remember, guys? I think I'm still getting. Yeah. What is that?
FM 103.3, 30 ans de découverte.
Whatever FM 103.3 is, I'm getting that. I am getting 103.5 like the other day, but not as well as the other day. The other day signal was better. But it's there with some music. So kind of interesting to see what what the propagation is bringing in. My standard beacon for VHF is the NOAA weather station out of Burlington, Vermont, which is here. 162.400. You know, I tend to use it as a beacon to know if my antennas and everything's working great. So I'll be checking that out. What else do we have? As Steve says, don't forget the thumbs up. It's kind of cool. Maglone says, I live in Northport, but I work at Punta Gorda. Ah, interesting. So, hey, nice to have all of you here, my friends. And it's always cool to have everybody here. So I'm not sure we're going to have a very, very long show today. I've got a little bit of things after that might actually shorten it. I'm waiting for text messaging from somebody. Oh, thanks, Eric. I didn't know where it was from. So 103.3 is from Longueuil. So that's very possible. It's not very far. So it's going to be interesting. It's interesting to tune around. I don't tune around the FM band a lot. And I should do it more. You know, with the 103.5 that I was getting, I definitely should tune around more. So, you know, it's kind of interesting. So we've got a few questions today. We'll be checking satellites, and if anything is coming through, we'll be kind of tuning in. I need to check my antennas. I have the impression that the satellite signals that I'm getting are not as strong as they usually are. So there's something in the feed line on the way from the antenna in the back. You know, that antenna has been out there for, you know, it was out there here. The only place it was really outside all the time is here. So it means that it's been outside for the past 18 years, basically, on the shed. So I guess it's maybe, you know, getting old with all the bad weather and the cold weather and the snow and the sleet, the freezing rain and the hot summers. So I need to check out, I need to replace it with a discount. That's probably what I need to do. Get myself a discount antenna and put that up there and try to get even more signals out of for the radio here. You know, I mean, it's kind of nice. And since I put my ICOM here, I've been really using it a lot more. It's been almost, I turn it on almost every day. So it's kind of cool. And, you know, we're checking that out. So, okay, we got some satellites coming on. I've got some, I've got it here too, but I've got some interesting satellites here. I also brought up on the tablet the frequencies for some of these satellites, so it's going to be interesting. Max Headstrong, nice to have you here. One of the things that I would like to mention, because there's a few questions, one of the questions that somebody asked from the last time, I said if you can answer that because I'm kind of a little baffled. So his main question is, I understand that listening to satellites can be fun and all of that. But one of the things he was wondering is, there's a lot of satellites that are just beacons or just tones or whatever, and he was wondering, what interest is there in that? And what comes up to mind for me is always the same thing. I personally find that it's just cool to just have a signal from space being received with a radio, whatever it sounds like, whatever it is, like Morse code or tones or whatever. It's something that's just cool. I've always been amazed at the fact that with a little portable receiver we're getting or a bigger receiver like the ICOM here, we're getting signals that come from space. It's just so cool, and that pretty much resumes it. It's just fun. Hey, Cosmic Lettuce, nice to have you here. Brett Wayne, KC2NXP in Salamanca, New York, nice to have you here. So, it's just, first of all, I think the fun of it. His second question, of course, is what are the types of signals that we're receiving from satellites in space? So, okay, depending on the satellites, because we have two categories of satellites that can be received. The first one is, of course, anything that is scientific, commercial, or whatever. So, like weather satellites, stuff like that. The second type is, or military satellites, or I'll mention a few. And the second category is really amateur radio satellites, which for most people are the most interesting because they have so many different modes and many different things that they actually will broadcast. So on the scientific, commercial, military, whatever side, typically a lot of these satellites, so probably one of the most populars are the NOAA satellite, the NOAA weather satellites, and low Earth orbit. Like, for example, in about 30 minutes from now we have NOAA 19 that's coming up for a pass. So I unfortunately need to set up to actually decode the signal. I haven't done it yet, but I will actually have you hear what it sounds like when it comes over. If you use a weather satellite decoding software, and you need to have a very wide band, because unfortunately that's the thing, is my ICOM here, the bandwidths I have actually right now aren't big, aren't large enough for me to decode a NOAA 19 satellite map. That's why I want to set up my RTL SDR, because with that one I could actually set the bandwidth strong, very wide, and actually decode a weather satellite chart for the first time. And I'm hoping to have that set up for the next show next month. I think that's going to be a lot of fun to do. And next show, also next month, we will have, it will be on the RTL SDR and SDRs in the VHF UHF spectrum, and things that you can do actually with them. So my RTL SDR will be set up. It will be set up with an antenna, and next month and next show we will be there for sure. Danny, Shortwave Radio DX, nice to have you here. Says, greetings from a sunny and pleasant Yonkers, New York. Finished cleaning up the yard and hooked up his new FM loop antenna. Tested and working well on FM and also over-the-air TV. Review soon. Cool. Dave Todd, nice to have you here. Says, I am thinking I could do digital satellite with the SDR play in my virtual audio cable with the appropriate programming antenna. So, pretty cool. The signal, I believe the signal for decoding the NOAA weather satellite needs to be, you need to have a bandwidth of, I'm trying to remember, something like 12 kilohertz or 15 kilohertz. It's wider than what my receiver is actually giving me. In wide FM, I don't even have, I'm trying to remember, I'm trying to remember how many kilohertz, I don't remember exactly, but it's wider than what I have available on my ICOM. So I will use the RTL as 20. Yeah, it's possibly even more at Matam Valley. That's possible. It could be at 20-25 kilohertz. I know it's very wide, and you need to have that wide to actually be able to decode the full map, because now the filters on my ICOM are too narrow to actually have that capability. So I can't decode off of the ICOM directly. I have to decode. There would be a way to decode it if I would tap into the back of the ICOM. There's an IF output in the back, and from there would be a possibility to do it. But I'll be trying that out with the RTL SDR instead, because narrowband audio, it's too narrow. It won't decode on the software, that's for sure. So yeah, well, there's an IF out in the back of the ICOM that could be used, but I've never tapped into that IF output from the ICOM. I would need to have a little more information on how to do that and how to. I've never really played around with that, for sure. Orbiter 221, nice to have you on board. Ever tried receiving Meteor M2 signals? I've received once, I believe, the Meteor M2, the one that's lower Earth orbit, on 137-900. So, but I haven't heard that in a long time, and I was wondering if it's still up. Hey, Juan Amigo, nice to have you on board from Barcelona. So, I can decode right now. I don't have the capability to decode the NOAA weather satellite signal, but at least we'll be able to check that out. To continue answering the question about the modes on the amateur bands. So there's a lot of modes that are used on the amateur satellites. It goes anywhere from Morse code, of course, for the beacons and the identifications. Beacons are also, because one of the things that could be interesting in the beacons, for example, CO 58, Charlie Oscar 58, the beacon. Somebody had pointed out, well, it's just Morse code numbers and whatever, and I wanted to reply back, well, it's actually information. The beacons of a lot of satellites will usually have the identification in Morse code of that satellite. It will also contain very often information like battery voltage, the state of the solar panels, the state of all sorts of information, internal temperature within the satellite, stuff like that. So if you go on the website of who made that satellite, you actually will have that information available. So you'll be able to technically tap into that information and check out what all of that means. Even some of these satellites even have a little piece of software that you can download on a PC, and it will actually decode all the information from a specific signal from the satellite. There's also digital modes. There's a lot of digital modes. Some satellites are multi-modes. So one night you'll listen in and it's going to be, BPSK. Another night you're going to be there. It's going to be another mode. Another night it could be PSK31. Another night it's going to be, slow scan TV. Some have digipeaters, meaning that they can actually repeat something, a message or whatever. There's a lot of things. So, for example, NO84 is coming for a pass, an okay pass in at 16. So in 5 minutes from now. Let's just check this one for. So here it says that the downlink is 435.350. Let me check this. So NO84. If I look at NO84, let me just check if it's still alive. So we've got NO84. Just want to see if it's still alive here. If it's still alive, trying to see which one that is. NO84. I actually used the list from the Japanese amateur satellite fan that actually has a full list of different satellites, and I'm trying to see if I can find NO84. Let's see if it's working. I don't have it here, and I don't see it. I'm just gonna check out if I can start with a search on this thing. I'm not used to it. So here, let's just do this. Find in page NO 84. So nothing there. We might have another name, that's a problem. So 84. Let's go down. Let's check it out here. So 84. I'm trying to find NO84 because I'm trying to find if it's still active. Because that's the biggest problem with these satellites. You sometimes don't even know if they're still active or not. And that list is cool because it really tells you, yeah, that's still active, you know. Okay, NO84, I found it. Cool. So, NO84, where are you? For some reason, I lost the page. Yeah, so. Oh, it's here. Yeah, it's still, okay, it's still on. So there's a uplink, downlink, two frequencies, uplink, downlink. Some AFSK, PSK31, there's 1200 baud AFSK. Kind of interesting. We're going to try both frequencies, 435 350, 145 825, and see if we hear something off of that satellite. Kind of interesting here. So NO84, and it's going to have a 50-degree pass from where I am, so we'll be checking that out. One of the things you got to understand when you look at a so here it says on the Evans Above app, it says the uplink is 28120 PSK31 SSB, but downlink says 435.350 FM, which is kind of interesting. So 435.350, we're gonna put it at 435.35. Now you gotta adjust for Doppler, which is up or down. And I will put it in single sideband, and you guys might wonder why. For a very simple reason. It's typically easier to get a satellite in single sideband mode because your receiver is much more sensitive. So even when a signal is not supposed to be in single sideband, I'll transfer to single sideband to actually hear the weak signal within the noise floor. Because in single sideband I'll be able to receive it, where in FM I might actually not even hear it, or it might be a type of signal that'd be just like, you know, just ain't going to my ears because it's just not going high enough in the, if we look at the, you know, the noise floor versus what signal it is, sometimes my ear might not, you know, you might not hear it or nothing. By going into single sideband, I'll be able to detect that there's something there. So at least we'll know if the satellite's being received here or not. And there's another one at 145 825, which is kind of interesting. We're gonna try both frequencies. It's not written on the app here though for that frequency. It's kind of weird. So there's a lot of stuff. There are some satellites like the XW series of satellites that have single sideband voice, which is very, very fun because now you hear the guys talking, which is much more interesting than beeps and tones and whatever, or even Morse code sometimes, you know. Let's just continue here, check if there's anybody else that has joined in. So I don't have any passes of the International Space Station coming, so unfortunately I don't know, but I did see that. Oh, Eric, thanks, Eric. So it's about 34 kilohertz. Okay, thanks for the info, Eric. I was wondering exactly how much. It's thank you very much. So about 34 kilohertz. So you gotta really have a wide band, you know, available to hear it and decode it. So anyways, this is a lot of fun to check out. Yeah, the wiki for SAT and all sorts of digital sounds is very, very nice. Absolutely, Orbiter 221. Absolutely. Dave thought, would my Pro 2006 go wide enough? The SDR play goes wide. The Pro 2006 is not wide enough to go there, but the Pro 2006, I believe, has a IF out in the back, doesn't it? Trying to remember that. I think there's a tap that you can do in the back somewhere. But by default, the Pro 2006, the filters it has are too narrow to decode. The SDR play, because it is programmable and pretty much how wide you want, on the SDR play you are able to go and receive that. You can set it to 34 kilohertz. Yeah, just in the software. So it can that would be able, because any SDR, the software-defined receivers, are programmable. It's the software that decides how wide it is, honestly. So we're gonna check that out. 435, 350 for PSK31 FM, and 145 is 1200 baud APRS. So we'll see. Anyways, we'll see if I hear something on that pass. I don't know if we'll hear that signal coming through. Man Reader DXer, nice to have you here. So PSAT and an 084, also known as PSAT. You know, that's one of the biggest problems that I hate. I do believe, yeah, there's. I remember seeing, by the way, for the 2006, tons of mods for all of that. I remember a guy using his realistic Pro 2006 and decoding weather satellite stuff. And thanks, Eric, for sharing all the info as I'm talking about it. It's really appreciated. So what I was saying is some of the things that is sometimes difficult on amateur satellites is the fact that the amateur satellites will have several names, and sometimes it's kind of hard to understand what, know what name and what you got to search. So some lists will have, for example, NO84, but some lists will see it as PSAT and will not refer to its number NO-84. So, so yeah, like Eric says, it could be PSAT, PSAT. Because I've got it here under NO84 and the Evans Above list. And by the way, you guys want to see information on that, you can go to a website called Evans Above, set your location, and you will see there's a link that's called radio satellites. You can check that out. All the radio satellites that you could possibly receive are there. So we'll see if I hear anything coming through. So this satellite right now is still very low, but it's coming. It's started to move. Actually, it's already over. Wow. I actually missed it. I actually never heard it. So I actually never heard it. It's already passed. So that's kind of interesting. Never did receive it at all. So, okay. That's a bummer. We'll try NOAA 19, even though I can't decode it. NOAA 19 should be an easy target. So NOAA 19, which is the weather satellite, for sure. Can't find that one. I can see PCSat and 044. Yeah, it should be there. It's one of those. It's in the list somewhere. check it out through Heavens Above website, Matambale. Hey, nice jammer. Nice to have you here. Pretty cool. And yeah, there's a lot of mods for these things in the Pro 2006, and it's a great way to kind of have a cool use for the Pro 2006 and decode satellites, weather satellites. So the 119 is on 137.100, I think. Okay. We'll check that out. Well, you know what? On VHF 137 megahertz, I do have noise that makes my meter go up to S5. I actually got S5 noise in VHF range. Pretty amazing. So yeah, downlink to 137.100. That should be received. I'll put it in sideband anyways. We'll hear it when it actually arrives. So it's actually going to be. It's going to start rising in about a minute and a half. So also some of the information that you get from other satellites, so like the NOAA satellites, which have the picture, the APT pictures that you can actually decode if you have the correct equipment. There's Russian low Earth navigation satellites, the Cosmos satellites. Not all of them do transmit in the 150 megahertz range, but there's still a few that still transmit. It sounds a little bit like radio teletype, but in reality it's a form of telemetry. So these are possible also. And one of the things that, one of the aspects of the hobby of satellite listening on VHF UHF, by the way, has to do with the fact that some specialize in actually getting the unusual, what we call the graveyard satellites. So, in orbit there's thousands of satellites that are now inactive, that, have either been shut down, they broke down, stopped transmitting for some reason. But from time to time, some of them come back to life. And one of the fun part for some is to actually do that. It's to simply go and tune around and try to find something that might be reactivated by, for some reason. Sometimes, some stop transmitting for some reason, and 20 years later, suddenly they start transmitting again for, you don't know why, something happened. And some people just have fun doing that, going through the satellite frequencies. One of the ranges where you hear a lot of satellites is 136 to 138 megahertz. This range contains a lot of satellites that either are still alive or some that were alive at some point in the past. It's one of the ranges where satellites transmit downlinks. 136 to 138 megahertz. You can tune through there, and you'd be surprised sometimes to just get into, hear a signal of some sort. So that's something you can check out. Hey, Jeff Miller, nice to have you on board. Anybody's using a Mac software for tracking satellites? Mac satellite tracking software. What do we have here? If I look here, there's surely something for Mac. G-Predict exists on Mac, so you can check out G-Predict. Apparently it's good for Mac computers. There's something called Mac Doppler, ham radio satellite tracking for Macintosh. Mac Doppler. So there's a few one here available that you can check out. Maybe something in there is gonna work and you're gonna be quite happy with it. but I've never done any HFK. Nice to have you here. I've never I've never tracked on a Mac. I owned a MacBook for many years, but I don't believe I've ever tracked satellites on a MacBook. At the time, I always did it on the PC because Orbitron that I use here is just an amazing software for that. So we'll see if I'm gonna check something. This sounds weird. Yeah, there's a switch here that's a little choppy switch. There we go. So yeah, it's there. It's not very strong yet, but I'm starting to hear the peeps of the NOAA 19 on 137-100 in the VHF range. It should come strong enough that I'll be able to. You guys will hear it really well. Honestly, it's really starting. Its max elevation is in 4 minutes, so still a little low. But 137.100 for NOAA 19. That sounds delicious, Brett Wayne. Blueberry strawberry shortcake with honey. Wow, that sounds delicious. Matambali says NO84 40654U is not an Cellustract amateur satellite list, it turns out. Wow, that's weird. And you have the latest list. And by the way, JFK is N2ZNN in Pennsylvania. So you guys might be hearing it right now. I'll put it back in FM mode. You guys should be noticing the satellite coming in. So here you can hear the ping from the NOAA satellite. So that should be getting better. So that sound that you hear right now, that will actually get better eventually, can be decoded using a weather. There's a piece of software that you can download for Windows, and it actually decodes weather maps, because what this thing is transmitting right now is a satellite weather chart. So it could show, for example, Eastern North America, and you see the cloud cover and everything, just like you see on the news. But they are low Earth, so it's like a smaller range for the picture. But you know, just like on the news, you'll see weather. Simply a weather map, which is very, very nice. So all you need is to have your receiver with a wide enough filter. So Matambali's got a faint signal right now as he's just on the edge of NOAA 19. So here it is. This is NOAA 19 weather satellite. All I would need is the and hopefully for the next show next month, everything will be set up and we'll try a live decode of a weather chart. That's going to be kind of a lot of fun, I think. So I think that's really going to be cool. Some amateur satellites coming up. There's the XW2F coming up in about well, it's already here apparently. So I'll have to go there if I wanted to get it now. But it's not a very good pass, 34 degrees. So it's a weather to image, I think. A WX2IMG, isn't it? You say weather to log? I think it's WX. The software is WX to IMG, right? Yeah, to image. Yeah. WX to image. And here there's actually even a website dedicated to those using the RTL SDR and using WX to IMG software. So I'll actually post this here if you guys are interested in knowing what is available. So here you have and you have an example that shows you the picture, an example of the picture. So you see the signal is actually quite good. It's actually moving my meter up to S6, S7. So it's actually having a pretty good pass right now. But unfortunately, even though I can receive it right now, what's missing is a lot of information because the filter for my radio is too narrow. So it's missing out on a lot of the signal. It's actually a very wide signal. And it shows because just by moving a lot from side to side, you actually have a lot of that signal that's still there. And you need to have all of it in order to use that software to decode the image that's coming from it. That's the biggest problem. One problem that I do have also with satellites, and a lot of satellites, like this one is actually passing almost overhead. It's 75-degree pass, which is very high in the sky. So what's happening is when satellites are very, very high, almost overhead for me, one of the biggest problems I've got is that my VHF antenna is a vertical. A vertical is made to receive signals around it, horizontally around it. It's not meant to receive something that's straight up. So it's deaf when it's pretty much straight up on my antenna. It's got a deaf spot there. So typically what I will have is I'll have a strong start to the signal because the satellite being lower in the horizon, the signal will actually be okay for my antenna. But as it rises, there's a point where I lose it for a while, for a minute, because it's just overhead and my antenna is rather deaf there. Then it will come back on the other side, on the edge, on the other side of it. So basically that's the thing, and that's what's happening. So I got that, and I would guess a discount might actually fix that. But of course, there are antennas made for NOAA reception. For example, there's antennas that are made for tracking and following the NOAA satellites that you can actually okay, so you get that with discounts also, Steve? Because I would think that the way the discount is made, maybe there would be less of a dead spot or something. So, So, people that are really serious in decoding the images actually have these antennas that are actually made for the VHF range, and often they'll have directional antennas that follow, the signal. And by the way, a lot of people, somebody was asking a question, said, well, all these fancy satellites, and you got to follow them, and you need tracking and rotors, and no. You know what? Basically, a lot of amateurs, and if you look on YouTube, there's a lot of amateurs that simply have built antennas that they can actually hold in their hand, and they will actually follow the satellite simply manually by holding the antenna and just by looking at the information that they have, kind of trying to pinpoint manually as the satellite's moving across, and some have done the contacts through amateur satellites, and it just works great. So Red Wayne says egg beater antenna. So depending on what you want to try to listen to, you might want to have some types of antennas. And of course, a lot of amateurs that actually do satellite will have fancy antennas and the rotors and all the computer control that makes the antenna follow the satellite while doing the contact. But you know what? I've seen people do contacts on satellites using a handheld just with a rubber duck antenna. So it shows you that in good moments when the satellite's positioned correctly, very surprising what you can actually get, you know. Jeff K, who makes a decent wideband discount? I don't know if they're still making one, but I've heard a lot of good about two companies for discounts. Diamond, Mantambali says Diamond. Diamond is one of them. The other company that is making one that I see a lot of people saying that it's pretty good is the ICOM. ICOM actually has a wideband discount that goes up to like 2 gigahertz. But I know Diamond is very popular discount antenna, and it's a very popular company for antennas also. So maybe I should check that out, and when I'm ready to change my antenna, I'll get one of those and set it up. For now, I'm going to leave it like that. You know, I still get decent reception. I mean, you can, you know, let's put it in perspective, because one of the things that I like to do often is to it is expensive. I know that it is expensive, Steve. But I've heard people say it's good. Now, is it worth the price that they're selling it for? That's another question. You know, maybe it's not better than the Diamond one, but it's more expensive. I think it is much more expensive than the Diamond one. So, you know. Hey, Sartor Nicholas, nice to have you here. Yeah, quadrifilar helix. Yeah, that's one of my friends. A fast load that you guys see from time to time has built something like that to get the NOAA satellites. I had a you know what, Mantambali says Radio Shack used to sell original manufacturer Diamond. I used to have a disc. I had a discount a long time ago. I had a discount in the late 80s, early 90s for about, I don't know, 5 years, and a little more, maybe 6 or 7 years. And what happened is that when I moved, of course I couldn't keep the discount built full size. I had to remove each, you know, each little, you know, thingy out of it. And what happened is I would try to remove one, and it would break. The antenna was like it'd been outside for years. It was just I couldn't remove one without breaking one. So every time I would try to remove one, I would break one. So I just threw it in the garbage, because it was like, okay, I can't, you know, and I can't bring it like this. It's impossible. So I just threw it in the garbage. But I remember that antenna actually performed very well. And it was, at the time, it was on my Radio Shack Pro 2006, which was receiving quite well. So I you know, started using my vertical that I have here, which is a wideband vertical. I don't remember if it even has a brand. It probably did. You know, I mean, on the package when I bought the vertical, it probably had a brand, some brand, but I don't remember. And I've been using that now for what, more than 20 years, and it's you know, it's surprising because sometimes you can have better, and yeah, you can have better antennas, absolutely. Thing is, when I compare myself to others, I actually receive stuff with my vertical that people around me don't hear at all. So I kind of, you know, am in the middle. I'm like, well, you know what, I actually have better reception than a lot of guys that I know. Well, I receive more signals than Fastload, and he's got one also up. He's got a vertical up. But at the same time, I'm pretty sure it could be a lot better, especially for satellite stuff, you know. So anyways, you know, you go with what you have. And I think that's the important thing also, because not everybody can invest in an antenna or buy equipment or stuff. I think you got to go with what you got, because that's very important also. Can I receive about anything? Let me just go here. In the VHF UHF, if I use telewhip inside, one of the biggest problems with having an antenna inside is the fact that the walls around you do attenuate VHF UHF signals, and the higher the frequency you're listening to, the more of it is being blocked by everything around you. So inside you don't get the same performance. For example, just to give you an idea, I can get satellites, some amateur satellites, with the portable ICOM and this whip antenna when I'm outside on the balcony. But if I go inside with this, I do not receive them. I need to be outside, and I'm on the top floor of where I live. So, you know, above me is the roof of the building, and then it's, you know, so it shows you, like, you know, a little earlier I was listening to a signal on one, which was the Sûreté du Québec, the provincial police, on 166.800, and I just tried with this one just to see if I could receive it, and the R20 could not receive it inside. I had no signals at all on this one. So you can listen to stuff with the antenna inside, but you won't get good performance as if you had some kind of outside or outdoor antenna. That's for sure. Matham Bali says, mine is 25 years old and held up in horrible weather. Yeah, kind of interesting. Erica Troll, yeah, that is. I do have a lot of loss here, especially in the higher frequencies. I am using RG 58 or 59, something like that. And I know that LMR feed line is a much better thing for VHF, especially in UHF range. The loss is really, the higher the frequency I go to, the more I have loss here, and that is due to the feed line. Absolutely, Eric. That you're totally right. Steve says, I have a D130, I think a 30-year-old Radio Shack discounts. Wow. Jeff Miller is interested in SATCOM toward 255.8 and the International Space Station, 45.8. There's a lot of fun listening to, you know, like amateur satellites and stuff. It's kind of nice. Jerry's been using his diamond antenna for a good 3 years and still works great. Cool. So, Matham Bali says, later editions were pretty bad. I remember they had a reputation of falling apart in blizzards, ice storms, and rain. So, you know. Jerry, any good air or marine activity lately? Well, in the VHF range, I got an airport not far from here, and I got planes passing overhead every 5 minutes. So, airband has a lot of activity for me, absolutely. Marine activity, yeah. If I go to, you know, like the marine frequencies, like for example, I'm trying to remember the main. Let me just check it out here. VHF Port of Montreal frequency. Just gonna check it out here quickly. So if I look at the Montreal port, let's just check. Okay, Montreal VHF frequencies. Let me just check it out here quickly. Trying to remember. It's 156,800. Is it possible? Trying to remember. Port of Montreal. That is operations of the port, but the maritime stuff. I'm looking at the maritime frequencies. I think it is in the VHF range. Yeah, Canadian VHF marine frequencies. So I do believe it's frequency chart in PDF. So okay, and a zip file. I hate those. Okay, PDF. Let's check it up. So if I look at PDF, so the frequencies for the maritime, okay. So I do believe it's 156.7. Trying to remember. Let's try to get some comms here. I'll try to. So 156. Port operations, pilot information. Okay, let me just check it out. Yeah, I think it is 156.7, something like that. So we're going to check that out. Oh, that 800, international distress. Okay, 800 is international distress safety calling frequency. 156.800 is international distress safety and calling. Okay. Well, I'll leave it there and see if we can hear something, because I hear the port when the boats, especially like, you know, there's the like, you know, all the cruise ships and stuff like that in the old port that go on the St. Lawrence River, and they all check in with, you know, the Port of Montreal. So I usually hear something. I usually hear something. So let's see if I hear anything here on 156. That's 700. We'll see if we check it out. Mathan Bali says DIY work with antennas is about the most fun I've had. I used to. Brett Wayne says I love to build antennas. I used to. I used to build antennas all the time. It's something I would do a lot. So take care, Jeff K. But I would. I kind of lost that over time. Yeah, LMR 400. That's pretty much what I need to probably have. Max Headstrong says I got the icon discount, extremely well made. Impressed with the build quality, but pricey. Douglas Perry, nice to have you on board. Air control also losses can increase in feed line as it is out in the weather and water gets in. Yeah, absolutely. I've done a lot of changes to my feed line over time, because outside in the back, it you know, with the winters we got here, it often happens I gotta, you know, do some modifications and change stuff. Sometimes water can actually get in and stuff like that. So yeah, I guess Max Headstrong would be better to have it outside than this gun looks better than a chandelier. You put these, you know, lights at the end of each. Oh man, Dave Todd says height is not important for satellite work. No, for satellite work, height is not that important because satellites tend to be high overhead, so it's not much of a problem. It would be maybe if you're working a satellite that's very, very low in its orbit, but when you look at it in the skies. But apart from that, for satellite, height is not that important. It is important if you're working, you know, like the 2-meter band, or you know, you're listening to signals that are far away on the ground. Now, yes, height is important for that. Here I'm lucky, you know, I'm on the 3rd floor, so I'm the top floor. The metal shed in my backyard, my vertical is above roof, So I actually have a very clear horizon of so I get signals regularly when I start scanning through my the different frequencies on VHF. I very often hear northern New York and northern Maine signals that actually are from all sorts of law enforcement and other types of communications. Honest, this is very nice. So, Jerry, waiting for the cats or the sats? So, oh, I'm going to check that out, marinetraffic.com. Okay, thanks, Steve. I'm going to check that out. Hey, Edvaldo Lemis, nice to have you here from Brazil, PY4001SWL. Nice to have you on board. So marinetraffic.com, I'm going to check that out. Marinetraffic.com. It's kind of nice. So that looks interesting. Definitely. Oh yeah, it is like flight radar. Absolutely. Oh, cool. I'm gonna check that out. Man, it's like planes. There's like stuff everywhere. Wow, this is nice. Oh, here we go. That was a boat. That is a maritime band. So this was a boat, or somebody just got in. Do you live in a place where there is thin all around, like my trailer outside? So this is. So these are boats, and they're talking of the seaway. So these are boats. What you just heard is boats that are on the St. Lawrence River somewhere. So I have some activity here because there's a lot of stuff happening around here. So here what I have is the only thing metal here is the shed in my backyard, which is a big 3-story high shed, metal shed, which is good because my antenna is a mobile antenna. It's supposed to be on a car, and it has a very strong magnet base that is supposed to stick to the roof of your metal car. So it's perfect where it is because it's on the top of a metal shed. So it actually is perfect. It does work like it should thanks to that. If I did not have anything, I would have had to put a big ground metal plate to stick it on, because that antenna is made to use that metal shed right now to for equilibrium. It needs to have that in order to work like it's intended to. So I'm happy for that, because for the rest, there's not a lot of metal around here. There's it's a brick, and this is a wooden and brick building made in the 50s. Danny Shortwave says, I'm very impressed with the Jetstream JTD2 Juliet Tango Delta 2 discount antenna. It has been 1 year mounted on my roof. I have survived high wind gusts over 70 miles per hour, ice storms, snow and rain. It's built like a brick. Oh, that is good. That is very good. Yeah, we. Oh man, Jerry says, living in the heart of Montreal and you only have some activity. If I scan through the VHF range, there's a lot of stuff. I can tell you that. So you should be alright with tin outside in order to receive VHF UHF indoors. Actually, to receive VHF UHF, you got to be outside, Bobby. When you're inside, it's always the signals are always weaker. Your antenna, especially on VHF UHF range, as high and as and outside and as high as possible is the best. It's what you need to do, and that's pretty much it. Because my antenna is outside. It's outside on the metal shed on the top floor, and it's I got like at 75, 80 feet of coax to bring it up to this radio from the back up to the front here where my office is, basically. So Eric Cottrell says AIS transponders can and receivers use VHF frequencies 161.975 and 162.025. I need to check that out. There are a lot of things that I've never looked at, honestly, and I need to check that out. Hey Tia, nice to have you here. Pretty cool to have all of you on board, by the way. And so, you know, there's a lot of stuff actually in Montreal to listen to. You just gotta tune around, and you'll be surprised. I always laugh because if you listen to the Port of Montreal, I always say, if you want to have some interesting listening, put your radio scanner on the main frequencies for maritime and for the Port of Montreal, and you will hear, in a hot summer day like today, you are bound to hear in a afternoon tons of small boats that are in all sorts of problems, danger, no more fuel, stuck on some rocks, whatever, and or drifting because they're like, doesn't work, the motor doesn't work anymore, stuff like that. You hear tons of these things around here, and it's always entertaining listening. I don't think I've ever listened to the maritime bands here for a while and not heard something quite unusual happen. So, you know, it's one of those things that it's just human nature. You know, there's always somebody somewhere that's like, you know, stuck and has some difficulty. So, you know, it's just to it's fun to be here for that, because Montreal being an island, because the city of Montreal is on an island, we are surrounded by the Prairie, the Rivière des Prairies, or Prairie River on the north side, and the south side is the St. Lawrence River. So Montreal is a island, and there is the St. Lawrence Seaway that is very, very, very popular. It's one of the most used in North America, and even the part of Montreal is one of the biggest in North America. So there's a lot of activity here. I'm lucky for that, because there's activity for the maritime stuff. There's the activity for airband. We got a big airport here. The planes, one of the corridors for the planes is passing almost over here. I get planes passing over every 5 minutes. There's a lot of activity thanks to all of that. And, you know, it's kind of interesting because I see people, I remember someone telling me once, I said, well, you know, you're lucky because where I live, I'm far from everything. And I have nothing to listen to, or very little. And, yeah, depending on where you are, absolutely, you know. For you guys, same thing. Like Dave Todd says, he lives on the south shore of Lake Ontario. Lots of sport fishermen on the VHF marine channels and seaway traffic too. You know, anybody that lives around the Great Lakes, same thing. You guys will hear tons and tons of traffic and information and stuff happening over there for sure. I mean, there's a lot of stuff there, and we're lucky for that. We do have a lot of trains around Montreal also, so the railway stuff is interesting to listen to. So it's really, really cool. You know, like I was saying the other day, and you guys, if you, I'm just going to try to see if I can, yeah, here it is. If anybody that wants to listen to trains here in Canada, absolutely, one of the great things is this guide, the Canadian Trackside Guide. This is 2014 edition. It is totally worth it if you're a rail fan and want to monitor a lot of stuff from the trains, nowhere, and have information of where they are and all the things. This is the guide because it has train numbers, it has the railway numbers, the different routes of the railway stuff. It has tons of info where you will learn a lot, and all the radio frequencies. So here, this is a page for radio frequencies all across Canada that are being used for different traffic. It's amazing, and you have all the train numbers. You've got railway maps of all sorts like this, where you can see where everything is. This is great. And what's nice, if you live close to the border, there's a little bit of US stuff in here. Some of the information does talk about, like all the some of the railways from like just across the border. So it's really, really, really nice. This is amazing. This is an amazing book. If you listen to, if you like railway, if you're a railway fan and want to listen and know what you're listening to, this is the book to get. I can tell you that. Really, really a great, great, great book. I'm extremely happy to have purchased this in 2014, obviously. And I don't know how much of that information is actually still valid. I don't think these frequencies change that much, but there could be, of course, changes every year. Maybe it's time for me to upgrade that book to a new version. I don't know. So, Patam Valley says not much traffic in Colorado, other than some bad toys, really. Yeah, it depends. It depends where you are. When I would go up north, I remember when I was young and would going up north with my dad. I remember over there was not a lot to listen to. There was almost nothing to listen to, honestly. And I would scan for hours and hear one. In an afternoon, you'd scan for like 4 or 5 hours and hear one signal on one frequency and say, "Oh wow, I heard something," And pretty much the only thing I would do there is listen to the Mont Tremblant AM repeater. I was really so happy when there was some sporadic E-skip, or when solar activity was high, because my scanner would go down to 29 megahertz, so I could start listening in, over there, surrounded by mountains, not a lot of stuff to listen, but I actually could, at least listen to like amateur repeaters on the top of the 10-meter band. I remember one of the funs that I had when propagation was there was listening to the Virgin Islands repeater on 29660. Which was a lot of fun for me, honestly. Theo says, that book is still accurate today. I used to work for CP Railway. The frequencies and info is still active and accurate today. Oh, wow, cool. So that's nice to know. So pretty cool. Max S. Strong says, my discount is in a sunroom off my dining room, surrounded by windows. It does help, if you have... If you don't have a lot of concrete and metal and wood and everything around you, a lot of windows, it does help. It does help. They often say if you want to have radio reception and you can't put something outside but put it in your window, that's where signals can actually go through. So. Dave says, did you have the Aritech books in Quebec for scanner frequencies? They were the best. I remember having those. I remember having several. And, I miss a little bit of that when the scanner radio scene was really, really popular. There were quite a few frequency guides that you could purchase. I remember one here in Quebec, and I think it was the Aritech book. If I remember well, Dave, they actually had, they were saying at the end, if you would submit information among all the people that would submit info, they would draw 10 names every year, and these 10 people would have a free a frequency book for the year, the new one, and I sent new frequencies for that book every year for as long as it existed, I think. And there was not a lot of people sending in stuff because I won a free book every year that I submitted frequencies. So I thought, wow, there's not a lot of people submitting frequencies. So I don't know how well they sold, but I remember these books. These books were great. I wish I would have kept one. I don't think I have anyone anymore, but I wish I could have kept one. These were great. These were great. Danny Shorter Radio X says, I'm enjoying listening to rail lately. Picked up the NYC subway system with new scanner. Very sensitive compared to my older scanner. Cool. That's cool. We have Amtrak, Metro North, New Jersey, Transit, and New York City subway here or near to listen. I used to bring my scanner radio in the subway, and there were a couple of frequencies where you could listen in to the traffic within the subway, which was kind of nice. Max Strong says, I also have an MFJ 1786 transmitting loop mounted near a window in my attic. Cool. Theo, you still have 3 of these? Wow, pretty good. Steve says, yes, these guys were great. Absolutely. That was so much fun. Absolutely. Luis Arevalo, hey, nice to have you here. Wow, this is hot. 100 degrees in Los Angeles. Wow, too hot for me. Oh yeah, Scanner Master. Eric Cottrell says Scanner Master put out books for the Massachusetts area and some other areas years ago. Yeah, I remember that. I remember seeing ads for them in, I think it was in Monitoring Times or Popular Communications or something like that, which was quite interesting. And thinking of that, somebody was asking me a question the other day and said, do you have any magazines that talk about, not just shortwave, but also anything that has to do with the scanner radio scene and stuff like that? And yes, there is, and it's called the Spectrum Monitor. I'm just gonna show you guys the cover of the August edition. So this magazine has Spectrum Monitor, has not just shortwave information. It has information on VHF, UHF range satellites, amateur radio of all sorts. There's a lot of stuff in here. So you can subscribe to Spectrum Monitor and have tons of frequencies and tons of information. It's I recommend anybody that is a big radio fan to subscribe to the Spectrum Monitor, honestly, because it is totally one of the best magazines out there right now. Matham Valley, nope. Monitoring Times has stopped publishing a couple of years ago, but the Spectrum Monitor, if you miss Monitoring Times, the Spectrum Monitor is the same. It has the same feel, and actually, some of the people that were actually publishing within Monitoring Times are now on the Spectrum Monitor. So that's a great, but it doesn't have a paper version. Some people are a little disappointed in that, say, yeah, but I'd like to have a paper version. Spectrum Monitor is not paper, it's an electronic publication. So unfortunately, it's really a electronic publication, but it's a great publication, and I think it's like $24 a year for subscription. And I subscribed 1 year, and I've been a subscriber now forever. It's this is my like I always say, everybody, I say, you know what, this is my Christmas gift. My Christmas gift to myself is buying a subscription to the Spectrum monitor for the year to come. I'm never disappointed. There's always, you know, one of the things about magazines, and that's always what I found in magazines over time, is any type of magazine. You know, I used to be subscribed to tons of magazines. I used to have Popular Communications, Monitoring Times. I used to have Sky and Telescope, Astronomy, Popular Mechanics, and a couple of others that I'm trying to remember. And I was some computer ones, and like, you know, PC Mag and stuff. But one of the things that happens over time, and especially as you get better in the knowledge of radio, one of the biggest problems is that these magazines tend to repeat themselves from all over again from time to time, and it's natural, because I mean, they have new viewers from time to time, so it's kind of from time to time you kind of go back to the basics and go back to this or go back to that. And what happens is that you get bored, and a lot of magazines, you know, I would not subscribe anymore because I'm getting bored of having the same stories all the time. And it would be kind of, you know, something that I didn't really feel was interesting. So basically, I would unsubscribe to some of them, but there's one that I've never unsubscribed that always kept my interest, and was, of course, Monitoring Times. Sorry, Monitoring Times. Monitoring Times was, you know, it was always interesting. And you know what? I kind of have the same feel here with the Spectrum monitor. I am always interested. There's always something, even if I don't necessarily read all the articles. Some of them are well, you know, okay, I know that. I'm not going to read that. But there's always something in there that you want to read and you want to know more about. So, you know, it's kind of cool. That's pretty nice. Popular Communications was a different thing. Popular Communications was a little more. What I hated about Popular Communications compared to Monitoring Times, although even Monitoring Times was sometimes a little old in the information, the biggest problems with magazines at the time was that they had information that was old, you know, things that were happening months ago, and you're like, huh, that's kind of old stuff, you know. And it always was, in Popular Communication was worse for some reason, you know. You would learn about something 4 months after it happened. And of course, you know, today we got the internet and everything is like just there, and it's not the same thing. Hey guys, I'm just going to bother you for a few seconds. If you like what I do, why not give me a PayPal donation? If you enjoy what I do, VHF UHF wise, or, you know, on the shortwave live shows. I'm here every week, you know, and we do a lot of stuff. I've been here every week, you know, for how long, I don't know. And, you know, I try to be here all the time. And, you know, if you really enjoy what I do, why not help me out in some way? So paypal.me/shortwave, or the Yahoo email I just posted, or patreon.com, and just join 11 patrons that I have right now that are actually giving me a little something every month. So patreon.com/radio and computers. Just make sure you set it up right, because it's a little tricky sometimes. And thanks for your donations. Much appreciated. So yeah, Spectrum Monitor is pretty much a replacement to Monitoring Times, Jeff Miller. Eric Cottrell says he's active on Radio Reference. Radio Reference is a great website. That's pretty much where I get a lot of information. As Eric says, he submits frequencies to radioreference.com website. Submitted a few I heard during the trip to Montreal last week. There were a few people in Quebec submitting frequencies. There are a few, yeah. you know, there are places like here that there's a lot of difficulty having people submit or get information. And that this is the local provincial police, and this one is up north. You just thought Piedmont 166.830. I'm hearing something from the Laurentians up north. So this is in the clear, provincial police from Quebec. 90% of their traffic is in the clear here. So Danny Shortwave says I would do a lot of free trials on mini magazines. Steve says same stacks of mags. You know, I guess I would. I guess a lot of us were interested in a variety of pretty much the same type of things. You know, as we grew, as we are interested in radio. But I think anybody interested in amateur radio or radios probably will at some point be interested in you know, science stuff and astronomy stuff and maybe mechanics stuff. Some people are very manual, you know, maybe you're interested in a lot of, you know, popular mechanics stuff, and so, you know, I think a lot of that kind of joins itself when we're interested in something, honestly. Oh man, if you want to talk about that, Danny Shortwave, I remember at one point in the 90s, my room where I lived before, my room was one of the walls were stacks and stacks of hundreds of magazines, all mixed up. So you get in the stack, you could get I had kept all my, in the 80s, I would buy the Computers Gazette, which was the magazine where you had all these programs for Commodore computers. So I had Computers Gazette, Ahoy. These were the ones I would buy every month back then. And then, of course, came Astronomy, Sky and Telescope. Then you had Monitoring Times and Popular Communications. At some point, one of the walls had a lot of magazines all stacked up, and I remember throwing them out when I moved, because I was like, man, I can't bring that weighs, you know, 10 tons. I can't bring all of that, and I you know, kind of threw them away at the time, which did make me sad. I mean, there were thousands and thousands of dollars spent in there, and but you know, I just couldn't. And you know, of course, I didn't have. As I moved, I can't, you know, come on. I'm not going to keep Commodore 64 magazines. And, you know, by the way, for anybody that were having, that had Computer Gazettes, there's, if you go to torrents, there's a big file in the torrents that I downloaded. It contains every Computers Gazette magazine in PDF form that ever existed, from like 1982 when it started up to the last copy, which was like 1990 or 91, and maybe a little later. And I mean, for the kick of it, sometimes I'll load one of the Computer Gazettes, and you know, I still look at the cover of these, and I remember buying it. I remember that magazine and doing the, you know, programming the little programs inside it and all stuff like that. So I get a little kick out of there for sure. Hey, David in Barcelona, nice to have you on board. Tio says, once every couple of months, I always redo my radio reference downloads as people submit new frequencies. Absolutely. For trunking systems, all of that. So I find there's always some new channels coming and going. Yeah, you know, I miss having the scanner books, because there's a lot of changes going through all the frequencies and the things we hear. And companies will sometimes change their radio systems, or, you know, there'll be new repeaters, or there'll, you know, all sorts of things like that that make you, that you want to know about. And having all that information is kind of cool, you know. Luis Arevalo, can you hear signals from near USA? Yeah, absolutely. On the VHF range mostly. If I scan between 150 and 170 megahertz, I will hear a lot of stuff coming from, New York State, Vermont, Maine, over here regularly. And it's easy because you hear the accent, you hear the English accent that they have. You see that it's a different English that's from a Canadian English speaker. And I do get, look, to give you an idea of how I do receive signals.
Power. Chance of rain 50%.
This is 162.400. It's the
chance of showers.
NOAA weather station off of Burlington, Vermont.
Lows in the mid-60s.
This is broadcasting on top of Mount Mansfield.
An hour until midnight, becoming light and variable. Chance of rain 50%.
So if I'm getting NOAA, of course I'm getting a lot of stuff from the border, just across the border here in Montreal. Jeff Miller says, started scanner listening in 75 or 76 on a crystal controlled 8-channel Regency. I feel so old. My first radio scanner, well, okay. To be fair, my first time I listened to the VHF UHF range was on a multi-band radio that my dad had purchased in, I would guess, 1981. And I'm going to show you guys. What was for a long time, for a very long time, my main VHF UHF radio, and it was this. It was the Trollman CB60. This was for a long time from I would guess about 1982, 83 up to about 1988, 89. This was my main VHF and UHF radio. That still works, by the way, very well. So I have its little cousin here also, which is the SW60. The difference between the both is that the CB60 has a CB band here for 8 channels, where the SW60 has the shortwave bands. So I have both. I listen to stuff on UHF and VHF on this for years. This was my scanner radio, basically. And I sometimes bring them up. Sometimes I like plug them in and listen in and just enjoy these. These are kind of fun. It's fun to have to play around with. So of course these were Radio Shack realistic multibands. That's I was listening with that until I got my first ever scanner that I purchased. I purchased my scanner radio. My first scanner radio was a realistic. I don't remember what model, but it had 10. It was a 10-channel. It had no display. It only had a keypad and number 1 to 10 for the 10 channels you would program in frequencies. And I would program the 10 channels of the Montreal Police or things like that, and listen in. But there was no way of scanning. You had to know the frequencies you wanted to listen to, because the only thing you could do was just punch in frequencies within it. And then I moved from that to my second scanner was a tabletop. It was a Realistic Pro 2022. That was an amazing little radio. And then I moved to the Pro 2006 and sold the 2022 to one of my best friends that still has it today. On the portable scanners, I moved to a Pro. Okay, so I had a 10-channel portable. I guess after that I moved to a Pro 51, which was an amazingly good scanner. Then I moved to a Pro 43 that I still have here because I wanted to have that military airband where I would hear planes from the Plattsburgh Air Force Base quite regularly and had a lot of fun. I remember one of my summer listening trends was to just scan there to hear the Air Force exercises from the Plattsburgh Air Force Base on the military band in 200 megahertz, 300 megahertz range. Then I had a Pro, wow, what was the number of that crap? Was it a Pro 26? The first one they ever sold, it had went to up 1.3 gigahertz. And they were advertising, look at that, this is so cool, goes 1.3 gigahertz. Yeah, but there was nothing there. And it was the crappiest scanner that I ever bought because it overloaded on everything. It was horrible. And I remember I sold it because I purchased I ordered from the United States, and I think it was from Universal Radio, a Radio Shack Pro 92, which is a trunk scanner. And the Pro 92 is my first trunk scanner I ever had, which I paid a ridiculously high amount for many reasons. First of all, it was a period of time when the Canadian dollar was very low, so it was like 400 US. It cost me like 550 Canadian dollars plus shipping. We were like almost 600. Plus, when I got here, I got screwed by UPS. UPS said, oh, you got to pay that too. And it was like 120 bucks. So basically, my Radio Shack Pro 92 screwed me over $700 plus, which is really not worth it. But anyways, I didn't know better, and I just paid. Today, I know better. So anyways, really overpaid for that. But I kind of got it back because I put the Pro 26 for sale because it was horrible. And I remember some guy coming over and saying, hey, oh, wow, why are you selling it? And I said, well, I got this one from the United States that does trunking and stuff, but I'm selling it, He says, oh, wow, because I always wanted one. And the Pro 26, I remember, was like $400 some here. And I was able to get 300 bucks, almost 300 bucks for the Pro 26. And I was like really happy to get rid of the crappy scanner, I can tell you that. Of course, I never told the guy that it was a crappy scanner. I should have, but I didn't, because I just wanted to get the money and get rid of it and kind of pay for that Pro 92 that was way too expensive, honestly. So, what else do we have here? What else do we have? Let's just go down here. Okay, so Communications World was one of the first radio listening magazine I bought. Oh yeah, man, Communications World, that tells me something. I believe I came across some of those at some point. Well, Eric Tia says, man, I wish we all lived close together. Now one I know gets this hobby. This is a close and special community we are in. Absolutely. Yeah, Eric, that is absolutely one of the big problems for you guys coming here to Montreal. There's a lot of stuff happening in French. Absolutely. Jerry Ball, hey there, nice to have you here. Love the magazine Scanning USA. Great help for scanner lovers. I've never seen that one. I remember it advertised, but I've never seen that. It's very hard to explain our hobby to whoever. I remember that I was with my friends, and my friends had nothing. And one day I came out. I had batteries in that CB60, and I told my friends, "Hey, I can listen to airplanes." And of course, kids are at like, or maybe I'm 14 and like teenagers, and like, yeah, come on, you can't listen to the airplanes. It's encrypted, or it's you need a big radio to listen to an airplane. And I took the Patrolman CB60 out. I had batteries in it, and I tuned in to the frequency for the airport, and this is Air Canada 546, and they all looked at me like, he just said this is Air Canada. I said, yeah, you're listening to airplanes. And they were like, really? Yeah, I listen to airplanes. And they didn't believe at the beginning, but when they heard it, they said, wow, okay, listening to airplanes, this is crazy. Steve says, same here, Jill accidentally picked up the police and was hooked. Wow. Theo says, that is the radio that got me into scanning and radios when I was a kid. Same radio, the Patrolman. Jeff Miller says, had the Patrolman SW60. I have both. I got the CB60. That's one my dad bought back then. And the SW60 I saw on eBay. The guy was selling it for like $20, and he was not far from here, so I sent him a little email, a little message through the eBay, and said, hey man, I'm in Montreal, and I think you can ship me that thing for not that high of a price. Can you check out what the cheapest price for shipping to me what would be? And he came back and said, well, I went to the post office. The guy looked at the box, weighed the box, and said it would be $20. I said, okay, so the radio's 20 and the shipping's 20. So I thought $40, come on, I want to have the little cousin. So it's right there, I could see it right now. So I have the SW60 and the CB60. I've got both that have the same frequency range, except that this one has 40 channels of CB. The other one has shortwave, shortwave 6 to 18 megahertz, something like that. Not very good performance on shortwave though. And not very good performance on VHF UHF either. They're not very sensitive, honestly. When you compare that to today's radios, even a cheap, $50 scanner today beats the crap out of that thing, I can tell you. So Max Headstrong still has it in the basement somewhere. You got to take it out. Use it. Plug it in and use it a little bit. Hey, Calvin, nice to have you here. Danny Shortwave Radio DX says, I think most here probably heard their first VHF UHF on a multi-port band portable. Yeah, probably. Hey, Tom Riddle, nice to have you here. Just discovered this channel. What is the status of TV scanning? I know the ICOM SCR3 has a TV scanning mode, but I've heard that most, if not all, analog TV signals are completely dead now. Yeah, that's the biggest problem with TV. Is that I even remember, was it the R3 that had that little display that you can actually even see TV video? That's the biggest problem, is that TV signals are now, they're all digital now. TV is, digital. So we don't have TV scanning and TV DXing is pretty much dead from what I see, unfortunately. I guess you could still maybe find some wireless security cameras that could maybe still be displayed on these things, but it's a little complicated. Unfortunately, the state of TV scanning is now pretty much gone. I just look here at the amount of radios that I've got that have TV audio frequencies, where you could actually listen to the audio of TV signals, which now has nothing anymore. Amin Sobahi, nice to have you here. Just crazy. Luis Arevalo says, my first scanner was a Bearcat 800 XL with cell frequencies. It did work way back years ago. That was so much fun. I remember Yeah, Caribbean and South America. There's some stuff there probably. Yeah, absolutely. Like Eric says, Rich McVicker still does some analog TV DXing, and I guess that would also mean that if Sportic Escape would happen, there could technically be some possibility of DXing the Caribbean and South American TV stations, for sure. But you know, wow. But oh man, so it's kind of nice, you know. Yeah, that would be something to do, you know, on a very, very good path of Sportic Escape, even up here, wouldn't be would maybe be possible, you know. I mean, I've heard Alabama and Florida on channel 3 and 4, so probably more than that. I remember when they took the analog cell band. For those that don't know, this analog cell band, which was in the 800 megahertz, was the upper part of the TV channels. So, if some of you are probably old enough to remember that UHF used to go up to channel 83 on old TVs, you guys remember that? You could listen to UHF up to channel 83. I remember we had this big 26-inch wooden TV that went up all the way up to 83. I had a black and white TV that also went up to 83. And what happened is that they took the channels, they reduced the number of channels in the UHF range, and they ended up at 69, which was the highest one after that. And the frequencies used for channel 70 to 83, the frequencies there, these frequencies were actually used for analog cell phones. That was the frequency range. I remember having an old analog a TV, black and white TV, that would go up to channel 83 and being able to kind of tune in into some of the conversations when I was actually going to the upper channels like channel 75 or whatever, and then using like the fine tune around, there was like always the channel button, and there was that control, fine tune control around it that you could just kind of adjust it slightly. And I remember hearing people talk there on those higher frequencies. It's pretty crazy. Max Headstrong says my first shortwave radio was a Sony Portable. My brother brought back from Japan in '68. The radio and I became inseparable. I kind of understand that. Far too many gadgets. Nice to have you here. It says I started with a G multiband radio in the mid '70s, tuned to the County Fire Dispatch on VHF low. Now I have trouble copying P25 Phase 2 due to multipath problems with my Radio Shack Pro 668. Wow. Oh man. That was crazy. Yeah, not having a single sideband. Jeff Miller says, I wish I still had my Pro 2006, but I traded it and some other stuff into Grove Enterprise for an ICOM R10. Sometimes you got to do it. Sometimes you got to do it, unfortunately. Yeah, the transoceanic Zenith radios. These were amazing. These were amazing. Crazy. Yeah, there's a lot of traffic outside. I wanted to do this show from outside today, but they shut down the street at the corner, and every single car is all passing over here today. So it's like there's tons of traffic outside. So it's not a good time to go outside for whatever. Oh man. Luis Arevalo says, my half scanner BCD 996P2 can trunking done by hand. What the hell's that? Okay. What else do we have? Indicator says I've got an antenna for 2 meters, 70 centimeters. Transmit vertically polarized, not paralyzed. Yeah, well, you know, it's not ideal, but it does still work for satellites somewhat. But it is a great, absolutely must be a great antenna for whatever you want to do. Next time the ISS is sending SSTV, I'll position it horizontally and see how it works. Oh, that can be an interesting. Oh, really, Steve? You know, I think our lives are probably carbon copies of many people that like what we like. I think for a lot of guys like us, the life is similar in some way, in a lot of things. Let me check that out. Bobby, I'll open the link. That is, what is that? Looks like some kind of weird vertical thing. You know, the best thing to know if it's gonna work or not is to try it out. Honestly, just try it out. What is that? Never heard that before. Okay, kind of weird. So, anyways, the best is to try it out. You know, it's. I think it's the best that you can do, and that's how you're gonna. That's how you're gonna know if it works well or not. A lot of stuff sometimes looks weird, and you're like wondering, well, you know, should I do something with that, and should I try? You know, try it if you can try it. Why not try it, and see what it does. Pretty amazing. Calvin says I had a Uniden Brickcat 2000 XLT mobile phone conversation, got me hooked, Joe. Like I said last time, you know, listening to these conversations when you were, you know, late on Friday nights, like, you know, around midnight Fridays or midnight Saturdays, it's just amazing. It's just amazing. All that you could hear on that, you know, that for one thing, we Scanner radio buffs that been there for long enough, we heard a lot of stuff. We had so many things to listen to at some point. And you know, one of the things that's sad about all of this is that I think that at some point we take it for granted, and that's something we never have to do. You know, I still remember listening to all sorts of signals that, you know, we get to a point where it's like, yeah, I can hear that, you know. Or people would ask us, because let's face it, guys, when somebody came over and they saw your scanner, what did they say? Oh, you can hear satellites with that? No. They said, oh, you can listen to the cops. Yeah. Because that's the first thing that comes to mind for everybody. Oh, you listen to the cops. Yeah. Until, like in Montreal, the cops are now digital. There's no more possibility for that. I do hear the provincial police, though. And you know what? When the local Montreal police became encrypted, it made me realize how to cherish and listen a little more on the provincial police side of things. Because it makes you think, well, if the local Montreal police is now encrypted, maybe that will go encrypted at some point too. So let's take the time to listen into the signals we have at the moment, because you never know what's going to happen. And the hobby is changing, and there's still a lot of stuff to listen to, but we might need, you know, a different type of scanner radio. You need digital stuff like, you know, Eric Charlie has his ICOM R30 that, you know, decodes different digital modes, and you know, the there's the TRX1 that also you know, decodes digital stuff. So I think it's, you know, we gotta stop taking for granted that we have signals and we listen to stuff, honestly, you know. Matam Bali says, speaking of carbon copies, this is definitely the place to be for radio fanatics. All of a sudden, are all crowded people with something cool in common. That's the reason I'm here. And you know, I get that all the time. People saying, you know what, it's really a lot of fun what you're doing, because you are bringing together people that, like I always say, we're all in our little rooms and with our little radios. We look weird when we go to a park with a portable receiver. We look really bizarre. Even our families look at us like some kind of weird geek listening to things with a radio and an antenna, and they're like, what the hell? You know, what is all of that? But, you know, it's we're all here for that. Manuel DXer says, Jill, I think there's still channels in Canada remain analog, but must be very few. TV DXer from Europe received one not long ago. I know that there's a there was set aside a specific some rules of TV, low power TV stations that could still stay in analog mode, but I don't know what's the exact rule. I do know that there was apparently some stations that were allowed to stay there and continue in analog, but like low powered stations or something. So Max says, Frank says, I am so looking forward to Shell 24 Hours New Year's show. It's still not a official project, but because if I do have, you know, like maybe I'll have a family that's gonna do something for New Year or whatever, and you know, I'm gonna be stuck with doing something with the family and friends, so I won't be able to do it. But you know what? If I can do it, I will really do it. If I have nothing planned, if nobody wants me somewhere, honestly, I will and want to do the 24-hour New Year thing. I think that'd be a lot of fun. A lot of fun. And, wow. I'm going to have to drink coffee. DK2 says, haven't had much luck with the NOAA satellites in my antenna, but it doesn't have the same little elements at the bottom. Huh. Interesting. Bullfrog 89 says, Manton Bali says, are there any analog NTSC stations left to catch? I believe there's like low power. There's some kind of rule that I don't know, but like, you know, we were saying earlier, Central South America still has analog stuff. I don't know about Asia, but you know. Bullfrog 89 says, once picked up a station from Ann Arbor, Michigan, when I was in south of Kingston, Ontario. You know, I had Sportic E-Skip, and I remember on a black and white TV that I would use to DX, I would get channel 3 and channel 4. I remember getting one from Alabama and one from Florida one evening. I was jumping on up and down. I remember my mom saying, what the hell is happening? I was like, man, I got a station from Florida on the TV. And, you know, they look at you like, yeah, right. Because part of them don't believe it. You know, they're like, but look, yeah. You know, I wish we had digital cameras back then. Because I would have taken a picture of that ID with pleasure. But no digital camera back then. I don't have all I have is in here remembering receiving stations from the southeast of the United States through Sportic Escape on Channel 3 and Channel 4 on one hot summer evening. And more than once. Because when I got that the first time, that's when I started thinking, okay, I got to try that regularly. And it happened several times that I, got these stations from the south on my TV back then. It was so cool. So cool. Okay, somebody has a lot of music outside. I want to do one outside of Bobby Burgess. I wanted, yesterday I wanted to do the shortwave one from outside, but because of they shut down the street, it's too noisy. There's, cars passing by all the time. There's like tons of, just looking outside right now, there's tons of cars all waiting because there's a stop in the corner, and they're all like waiting in line. It's impossible. But before we get to the cold weather, I want to do one from outside on the balcony. Hey, Ringway Manchester, nice to have you here. Nice to have you on board. And Jeff Miller says, spell check fun. Already had Danny Shortwave become Danny Shortage. Oh man, I got like so many things that are right sometimes that just, imagine my phone has spell check in French and English. And what's happening is that before it realized that I'm in one language, it tries to correct my French words into English ones, or my English ones into French. And so sometimes when I just text too fast, I send it and then I look at it after and I'm like, oh God, did he or she understand what the hell I'm about to say? Or, and imagine, even worse, you're at a bar at 3 a.m., you left the bar at 3 a.m., you're drunk, and you've got the spell check going wrong, plus you're drunk typing. It just creates a mess. I texted a friend the other day. It was like 2 weeks ago. And I was like 2 a.m. So I was a little drunk. And I texted. And the next morning, all I got as a reply is, I have no idea what you're trying to say. And I looked at my text and I was like, okay, I don't even have an idea what I wanted to say. It's just, MDK2 says, my life just missed being a carbon copy of yours. I had my dad's old 30s receiver with shortwave, but all it could really get was WWV, and I could never get a better receiver. That had to wait 30 years. Wow. Bobby says, I did have success capturing Coast Guard and VHF and public safety trunk frequencies on it. Yeah, surely. I mean, especially when it's outside, it's still better than a lot of other stuff. David says, yeah, WWV and WWVH, we talked about it yesterday a little bit and last week. Frankly, I don't think it's going to happen. But, yeah, that would be sad. Theo says, man, I heard so many 46, 49 megahertz cordless phone conversation. It was crazy. Ah, absolutely. 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 It's crazy. Like I was saying the last time, a few ones. The one of the best was, and I will always think about that when the girl that lived downstairs here had phone sex with her boyfriend like 2 times a week on her phone. And I remember one night I was hearing her having phone sex, and the next morning we're next to each other at the mailbox to see what, if we got mail, and it felt so awkward. I was like, oh, how are you? Was that phone sex good last night? Well, it sounded pretty good, but you can't not say it. You're just like, wow, if she knew, she would probably like really be like shy and be all red. Crazy times. There's still some baby monitors though. Let's just check it out here. Let's check out the baby monitors situation. There's one here. There's quite a few actually. I hear 1, 2, and there's a third one that I hear that I think they shut it down from time to time because it's really, really strong when it's there. Bobby Burgess says they showed someone a PL380 and the PL380 to a lady, thought I was listening to the cops. Absolutely, people don't know what we're actually doing. People have no idea what we're doing, honestly. You know, they look at our stuff and they're like, "What are you guys doing?" I don't know. I don't know. Mountain Valley, you could learn things about your neighbors you just wish you didn't know. Absolutely. Absolutely. You suddenly are in their personal lives. I mean, that was nuts. Jeff Miller wants a R30 for Christmas. You gotta ask Santa, Jeff. You gotta ask Santa. Only Santa can actually grant you that wish. Or just work hard and, get yourself an R30. You know what? I saw the R30 of Eric Cottrell the other day. Last week at the barbecue, actually. I gotta say, I would like to have one. I mean, it's sad because I didn't think about bringing my R20. It would have been a lot of fun to compare the R20 and the R30. And Eric seems to be extremely happy on his R30. So, I don't know. I guess could be a lot of fun. And, it would bring me into the digital age for scanner radio at the same time. So, I don't know. Who knows? Who knows what life will bring? Medro the Extra says, here's a list of supposed remaining analog TV stations. Okay. And yes, very low powered ones. Listen. Yeah. There's some kind of rule that it has to be really, really low power for it to work. Bullfrog 89 says, when they moved to DTV, digital TV reception pretty much dropped to just CKWS on Wolf Island. Positive. The problem with digital TV is it's a hit or miss. No, you could still do that. At it now. Is it? What the hell is happening? Okay, I think I'm back. Okay, you guys seeing me now? I think you guys should see me now. Ah, okay. Wow, this is weird. It's as if the internet connection had a glitch and it temporarily was off. Because I saw I was looking at, I have an indication, a green line. I've got a green line that tells me what the status of the internet connection. And as I was talking, the green line became red. So I thought, oh, something's wrong. And on the software, it told me, oh, it's off again. It's off again. Interesting, because it says my connection's good there, but it's off again. So I don't know what to. Sorry guys, I'm gonna have to say goodbye. It seems I'm all red now. Everything's red here. So hey, I'm so sorry guys. I don't know if you guys see it, but you know what? I'm back green right now. I don't know. I have to say goodbye. Any the friends, anyways, a couple of this VHF UHF show, and I want to say goodbye at least. Really weird happening. Hasn't happened in a long time that we had some issue with the internet. So anyways, I hope you